Sports professor Rick Horrow, Beyond the Scoreboard, the show that gets behind the trillion-dollar business of sports, marketing, deal-making, law, all of those issues that dominate the field of play. This field of play is not the grass field of play, it's the boardroom. That's the one where you can generate significant dollars, and especially now, Heisman over, getting ready for the bowl season, NFL thinking about the playoffs, NHL, NBA heating up, golf news being made, NASCAR news being made. Here at the baseball winter meetings, by the way, live in Vegas. Vegas also coming off of a major coup as far as the expansion franchise Golden Knights are concerned. Their value was $500 million when the Foley ownership group bid for it. The NHL, by the way, now, as we know, just awards an expansion franchise to Seattle, the 32nd franchise for the 2021 season, $650 million at the Sea Island, Georgia NHL meetings, unanimously approved. They decided to wait an extra year, get their arena done, not play in a temporary facility, just like the Knights did here in Vegas, T-Mobile Arena. They made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals in their inaugural year. So hockey dominates the landscape here in Vegas, even though it is the home for the minor league and Major League Baseball winter meetings. We'll talk about that in a minute. But the NHL, by the way, they'd also like to plan a World Cup of Hockey in 2020, but can't do it without settling a CBA dispute with the NHL Players Association. No dialogue on any of the topics the players may or may not want to conclude, says Gary Bettman. And he further noted the league, if they were to plan a World Cup, would have to be worked out by the first of the year of the All-Star game. Otherwise, there's no sense in trying to pull it off. The World Cup of Hockey, last hosted in 2016, owned and operated by the NHL and NHLPA together, revenues being included when calculating the salary cap, giving players an extra boost. Pretty likely discussion around allowing NHL players to participate in the 2022 Winter Olympics would come up as part of the World Cup negotiations, and on and on and on. But Vegas isn't just about the NHL here. We're in the middle of the winter meetings. Major League Baseball, pretty significant here, and they're thinking about all of the issues impacting Major League and minor league, goes way beyond the signing of Bryce Harper and Manny Machado. By the way, minor league baseball, in case you didn't know, 40.5 million fans last year, over 6,200 games, and Sports Business Journal talked about minor league baseball as the number one most family-friendly property, and they're not number one by little. They're number one choice by 2.5 times the number two property. So they're holding events here. The Major League Baseball people are holding events here. It's a big deal. If you want to hear about all of the items, both tech and philanthropic, as well as the 15 list of the 15 to watch, at Rick Horrow, horrorsports.com. Look at NBC Washington, NBCWashington.com, part of the CSN network. And also, join us and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Audio Boom, Stitcher, iTunes, and otherwise. You'll get a pretty good cross-section of all of the items related to football, basketball, hockey, all of that as well. Let's talk about some of the issues relating to college football, by the way. And it's interesting because there's been a couple of issues that affect big college sports. First, look at the ratings. SEC on CBS nabbed the highest-rated regular season college football package on any network with a 16% increase over last year, 13 to 16%, they say. ESPN, 163 million fans, 16.5 billion minutes, and Saturday's up 15% year over year, 1.9 million viewers for College Game Day. Bowl season only adds to that. And get this, it's not just a college football story, but it might as well be. The National Mascot Hall of Fame announced a multi-year deal with Russell Athletic, the apparel company providing Hall of Fame staff branded gear, logoed merchandise for the museum's in-venue online gift shop. I can't wait to see that. The partnership made Russell's the Hall of Fame preferred supplier. $17 million interactive museum opens the day after Christmas in Whiting, Indiana, just outside of Chicago. Financial terms not disclosed from the deal, but contributors include the Blackhawks, Bulls, White Sox, Indians, Mets, Phillies, and Auburn. Across all sports, team mascots present one of the best ways to draw in kids. The next gen fans, obviously, facilitating community outreach. Great that often furry creatures will now have a Hall of Fame of their own. Well, it's not small time, and we also have an interview that's not small time either. Smaller Athletic Conference in 1971, the founding of the New England Small College Athletic, the Small College Athletic Conference, NESCAC, 11 highly selective liberal arts colleges and universities sharing a similar philosophy for college athletics. Guess who these teams are? The Bates Bobcats, the Colby Mules, the Wesleyan Cardinals, the Trinity Bantams, Middlebury Panthers, the Williams Eths, Amherst Mammoths, the Tufts Jumbos, Hamilton Continentals. The point is, this is a league where the technology, as far as the streaming and the TV, is used as a device to recruit alum, to keep them involved. The playing conference became one big brand in 1999, 27 conference championship sports, 13 for men, 14 for women. Don Shields, the head of the New England Sports Network, talks a bit about all of this. It is refreshing, by the way, as we talk about Heisman, 41 bowls, the national championship, the college football playoff, that we don't forget the Amherst, the Bowdens, the Tufts, all of those schools that are the backbone and foundation for small college sports. Don Shields, here he is now.
Bowden early in the game had an opportunity. They were first and goal at the 1, but on the fourth down play, they fumbled the ball. Amherst recovered it at the 21-yard line, and that really is one of the big plays in this first half. Well, this is going to be kind of different. We have a halftime guest, but I'm going to interview him. He's going to interview me as Rick Horrow from Horrow Sports Ventures is with us, and you may have seen him on TV or online. He has a pretty active website. I know I knew the name rang a bell, and I went on site and I said, oh, yeah, I've seen this guy on TV before. And,
wanted posters. So listen, first of all, Don, I want to tell you, you're amazing because I've been watching you, and first of all, it's these games of two and a half hours. It's not a normal 3.5-hour game. You don't have commercials. But for you not to have a commercial, you have the quintessential set of pipes. I've never heard anybody that good and that passionate, and you don't take any breaks. There are no commercial time, no breaks. So whatever they pay you, they don't pay you enough.
Well, thank you very much. So first off, let people I know you're very involved with sports business. Tell me about Horrow Sports Ventures and what exactly that is all about.
Well, the company really is to help stadiums, arenas, teams, leagues. Sold that business a while ago, and now mostly media. Got a course that I teach at Harvard on sports business, which brings me up here. But also I do a lot of consulting for teams and leagues. I'm going from the Polar Bears today to the Patriots tomorrow, which is kind of an interesting dichotomy as well. But I have a show on Reuters called Keeping Score and a show on NBC called Beyond the Scoreboard, and then one on Fox called Power Sports, all talking about different things, business and philanthropy. So I thought it would be kind of interesting to see the differences. We understand the economic differences between the NFL and the New England Small College Athletic Conference, which you so ably do the play-by-play and are the face of. And by the way, the one thing that I've seen halftime through this, it's fun. This is a lot of fun. It's all relative. The passion here is incredible. And the other thing, which I'm going to ask you about, is this is the 127th season, which is incredible, the 96th Amherst-Bowdoin rivalry. What is it about New England football, and especially this conference, that sparks the passion?
Well, one thing about this conference, I think that this conference really has great talent in all the sports because of the NESCAC being such a high academic quality conference. It's kind of the I don't know if you want to say the smaller version of the Ivies, but in the Northeast, I mean, you've got that type of reputation for all these schools. And so I think a lot of times kids who will come to these schools want that great great academic challenge and still want to play sports, but maybe don't want to do it at the D1 or D2 level. So they look at an NESCAC school and say, this is a great place for me to go play, and it really works well for them, knowing that there's such a small percentage of players who are going to go on professionally anyway, even at the D1 level.
Well, you understate it. And, the one thing that my listeners ought to focus on is that the conference was formed in 71, clearly, but You've got 27 conference championships. You've got 13 for men, 14 for women. You got 7,500 opportunities for involvement. You had 72 teams in NCAA team championships. So this is not just a football conference with some schools that, by the way, have some great nicknames. So I'm going to find the concession stand and get the Colby Mules, the Bates Bobcats, the Tough Jumbos. By the way, the Amherst Mammoths today are playing the Bowdoin Polar Bears, in case anybody wants to know. So there is a merchandising and revenue goldmine here.
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, there's always a need for those T-shirts and hats. And when you talk about these two schools, it may not be the football field, but last year in the national championship in Division III women's college basketball, these were the two schools that played each other, and by far they were the cream of the crop in Division III women's college basketball.
And let's remember this as well, and you said it, and I would emphasize it for folks that maybe don't know this conference, is that Williams and Amherst and Bowdoin and Bates and Colby, Wesleyan, you don't just get Tufts. You don't just get in by snapping your fingers. These are exciting academic schools, and you're absolutely right. Division I, Ivy League doesn't have scholarships, nor do you. But if you want this kind of education and high energy athletics, there's nothing better than here and then today. And by the way, you guys are great because Whittier Field was built in 1904. That was just kind of about where football started. You spent $4.5 million on this first phase of renovation. You name everything. You're your first school that I've seen where you actually name a grandstand. Who is Hubbard?
You're going to have to someone who's been here longer than I have been.
There's the Whittier Field. Everybody knows Whittier, but Hubbard Grandstand. The field's going to be named. Everything's going to be named. Well, you guys are cool.
But that really that's the way of the time. I mean, we used the ballparks were named or arenas were named after wherever their location was, and now it's banks and insurance companies and tech companies are all looking for that sponsorship because they know that broadcasters are going to say that location several times, and the same thing for the writers and things like that.
And here's one for you. So obviously, I was kind of kidding. I was told earlier that if you don't know who Hubbard is, you better not come in the press box because he's apparently a big deal here, or Whittier, and both of them are really important. So all of the schools at all levels want to maximize dollars. Alaska Air just did a $41 million naming deal at Husky Stadium. Washington, University of Kentucky did. United Airlines at Southern Cal. And everybody's saying, you shouldn't be doing that. Gambling, we're going to have a lot of that discussion. Alcohol, a lot of that. Division I needs dollars. Division II, Division III needs dollars as well. What's the next big breakthrough thing here? Do we continue to donations? Do we sell the names of fields? What do you see in your world?
Well, because I'm not here day in, day out. Yeah. I'm more of a freelancer for Bowdoin. But, one of the things about the NESCAC schools as a whole, they have a really great base of people who are part of the alumni who donate back to the school. So, I think they take advantage of that. But, you're watching the smaller, the non-NESCAC D1s in this state trying to tap in. And look, they do tap into the money. Colby has a great association with the Alfond Fund, and Alfond is very famous in the state of Maine. Matter of fact, University of Maine has an Alfond Stadium or an Alfond Arena. Colby does. I believe the University of New England has Alfond. So there, a lot of the schools in Maine have taken Alfond money.
Well, and just to add, so Wesleyan, you guys play Wesleyan at Andrews Field. You guys play Hamilton at Steuben Field. You guys played Middlebury at Youngman Field. I'll make you a bet that those guys wrote some checks.
Oh, yeah, there's no question. Right. I mean, your name's not on a field if you didn't do something. I mean, let's be honest about it. In Major League Baseball, Wrigley Field is because, Wrigley had a lot of chewing gum and he had some money to spend.
And some money, too. Chewing gum and some money. That's the way it started. Let me ask you one quick thing because I know you got to get a rest before the half starts. Television. So the way you do your deal, it's the New England Sports Network. Tell my listeners and viewers about who they are and what they do.
Well, it's a company that's based out of Vermont, and it actually started doing Vermont-based high school and colleges in that area. and then it's kind of spread over the past several years. Eric Berry is one of the guys that helped lead that up in Vermont, and I think it's year 6 where they started reaching out to the NESCACs. Bowdoin has been along for the last 6 years. That's where I came in on this. Colby is a part of the NESCAC, and now as far as NSN stations are concerned, or schools are concerned, all but Tufts are part of that. Tufts is the only one that does not have an agreement. And of course, they're in Boston, and I think there's all types of things that when you have the bigger market like that, that plays into it. So they have found a niche, and it's really not a commercial-driven thing. It's more of an alumni-driven thing where the broadcasts are paid for by the school. That's why there's so very few commercials. There's I think we ran a 60-second commercial that promoted Bowdoin.
Right.
So there's not the traditional. I mean, I work in my real life for a local radio station who does high school sports, and we're looking for those local sponsors who want to promote their business in those broadcasts, and we don't do that here.
Your pipes working at a local radio station, that's a shocker. That's great. But on the television side, it is interesting because even at the different levels, the NBC podcast we do, and then at the NFL, everybody's now dumping on the fact that the television ratings are down and that football is therefore in trouble. Well, it's not the television ratings, it's what people are watching or what people are listening to. And you have the same number of eyeballs, they're just watching devices. They're listening to devices. I guess from your perspective, you see that too, don't you?
Right. And there's so many more options available for them. That's why, radio stations are streaming broadcast and, TV. I mean, this really, yes, it's TV, but it's not TV. It was started out as a webcast on a computer, and now through Roku, you've got an app there, and you can punch it up, and you can watch it on your, you can watch this broadcast on your big screen TV in the luxury of your living room or the game room or whatever it is, and really what the whole NSN idea is, it's not really for the local viewers. If you live in the Brunswick, Maine area, you're at this game, you're here. It's for those members from the families who can't get here, alumni who want to keep in touch with Bowdoin Polar Bear football, and they're able to do that by watching this NSN broadcast.
And another thing that I noticed is that you all, and the conference does, but you especially recruit nationally. I noticed a lot of the kids, some obviously the New England area, a lot of others will come because they like the academics, and they'll travel and they'll do this here. And I guess the webcam and the broadcast is just another way to get this out nationally to people.
That's an advertising tool, whether anyone believes it or not. That if you can say, hey, all your games are going to be seen. And I know I drop down and do soccer and volleyball, and it always I have probably more interaction with parents in those games than I do this football because of just where we sit for football. But in soccer and volleyball, when I do those games, I always have a parent or two who come up to me and say, hey, I'm from such and such, British Columbia. A few weeks ago at a soccer game, hey, I'm from British Columbia, and I love watching the games online. So
I guess from my perspective, and then we'll let you get a little bit of rest. Don't hold a bake sale for this conference, and don't hold a bake sale for Bowdoin Athletics. They've done tremendously over the last few years in ice hockey and volleyball and men's tennis, everywhere, basketball as well. And one of the beauties of what you do is you are able to get an inspired alumni network all across this conference to generate some support and economics. And this network is really important. It's not going away, and it's very stable.
Yeah, and the other thing we have to remember, and it's been told to us, remember that every school, with the exception of Tufts, is part of NSN. So, yes, I am here at Bowdoin doing the Bowdoin broadcast, but I also know there are Amherst fans watching. I just happen to have more expertise on Bowdoin than I do Amherst, but I have to kind of keep reminding myself throughout the broadcast that it's, you got to be more neutral than you are. It's hard for me because I've always been a Homer broadcaster. So.
You sound like a Homer broadcaster, and you should be a Homer broadcaster. Don Shields, I really appreciate you giving me the time to talk to you. Learned so much about this conference and really having fun here.
Well, this is a great place to come. It's nice to meet you, Rick, and it's a great place to come and watch a ball game. And the thing I wish I had known, the beauty of coming to this football thing when my kids were small, to bring them, because that's the other thing. These games are free.
Yeah, well, so I noticed that.
Nobody's taking tickets when they come in. I think the only ticket they take in regular season is the Colby Bowdoin men's hockey game. I think you need a ticket for that one. I don't think they charge you for it, but you need a ticket to get into that one.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, anybody that wants to hear this, Reuters International, NBC, anywhere, you ought to think about going to Bowdoin. And if you don't want to go to Bowdoin, go to Trinity, Wesleyan, Bates, Colby, Williams, Middlebury, Amherst, Tufts, or Hamilton. How's that?
There you go.
Okay. Thank you.
We enjoy it. Thank you very much. Nice
Thank
to
you,
meet
man.
you.
Okay.
And we'll be back here in just a moment. Take a look at those first half stats. We'll take a couple of minute break here at the half. It is 17-7 in favor of Amherst. You're watching NESCAC football on nsnsports.net.
Well, Don Shields gives us a very interesting window into a sport at a level that people may not understand. And when you consider that the dollars today are in the multi-million and billion-dollar range for college football, it is refreshing to know that a league with no scholarship programs but yet high academic standards can still succeed in the topsy-turvy world of college football. Let's talk about pro football in the NFL. Well, let's not talk about the NFL. Let's talk about football generally, the XFL. They're looking to make a splash in return. Decided on targeting existing and former NFL markets for their 2020 debut. Dallas, Washington, Houston, LA, New York, St. Louis, Seattle, Tampa Bay. Chicago and Boston left off because of weather. And if you think about it, says Oliver Luck, by the way, the league commissioner, most of these markets are passionate, diehard fans, and they are passionate. They believe in football. And as the XFL and AAF shared franchise plans, the 40-year-old former NFL running back Ricky Williams announced last week that the Freedom Football League will be joining the ranks of pro football upstarts. History's proven, by the way, none of these have a great chance of survival, but they're all going to try. It is a cyclical time right now for college football to begat the NFL and to start trying again. The NFL and Arrow Electronics, by the way, announced the launch of First and Future, the NFL's annual Super Bowl competition designed to drive innovation in athlete safety and performance. Hosted at the Georgia Dome the day before the Super Bowl, they'll talk about analytics like the NFL Punt Analytics competition. This is new this year, and it'll give applicants access to exclusive NFL data to inform creative submissions about rule changes designed to reduce player injuries during punt plays. Good idea. Second category, innovations to advance athlete health and safety competition. And from Pop Warner all the way to the NFL, major resources being dedicated to making football safer in hopes of keeping the sport among America's favorite pastimes and preserving it for future generations. We all think that's pretty laudable, and we all hope it works. Let's talk about Major League Baseball since we're in the winter meetings. There are a couple of issues that are important from a technology and philanthropy perspective. Everybody around here is talking about streaming, certain kinds of devices that are bigger than other kinds of devices. The bottom line is, it is an evolving technology. Unscripted has been acquired by the Players Tribune. Derek Jeter founded the Players Tribune in 2014 to give fellow athletes an outlet where they could tell their stories directly to fans. Russell Wilson, Blake Griffin, Danica Patrick, for example. They talk about retirement, contracts, and issues ranging from racism to mental health. Forbes says the company's most recent step toward its goal of becoming the ultimate site for athlete storytelling is its transaction centered on unscripted short-form video mobile app. Additionally, the app streamlines the process of publishing athlete content directly to social media feeds, often in partnership with corporate sponsors. And the transaction allows players to share their stories from their own perspective while simultaneously providing opportunities to bring in extra cash. We all like extra cash. Let's talk about something a little more serious, and kudos to Anthony Rizzo. If you remember, he was from Parkland and went to Marjorie Stoneham Douglas high school, came back for the mass shooting memorial ceremony in an action online with his philanthropic character, by the way. He just raised a $1.1 million commitment in his hometown of Parkland through his 5K Walk of Cancer. 1,000 people, raised over $1 million. He was the recipient of the 2017 Roberto Clemente Award for his charity work, and through the Parkland tragedy, he's united his hometown for the betterment of those fighting cancer and also, obviously, all of the other issues that have befalled the South Florida community. Let's talk soccer for a minute, and we should. Major League Soccer should be congratulated. Over 73,000 fans watched Atlanta United defeat the Portland Timbers, giving Atlanta the first title since the Braves, who won the '95 series, a gap of only 8,400 days. And by the way, in the meantime, Major League Soccer has announced plans to explore a potential partnership with Liga MX, the Mexican league. They talked about the idea of a super league, likely including around 50 clubs between the two markets, competing to become North America's best team, much like the Champions League in Europe, but replacing domestic leagues altogether. Some quickly dismissed the idea due to the MLS's current structure and Don Garber's intent on operating a league without promotion or relegation. But others think it might be an interesting idea as well. But in order to move forward, you got to stay healthy. And the Columbus City leaders have released a plan for the future of Map-Free Stadium, the current home of MLS Crew. The renovations of the stadium grounds would convert it to a shared-use public sports complex, keeping it in the club's training facility and a regional location. The stadium for the next 2 years would be constructed, and the city would contribute up to $50 million toward the deal, including between $20 and $30 million to repurpose it into a public sports complex. The long shot of getting a new stadium was one of the root causes for the owners' push to uproot the team to move it to Austin. Now, it appears likely the Crew will stay put in Ohio, where the expansion side joins the MLS in just a few years. Finally, let's talk golf. The Silicon Valley of golf being planned in Frisco, Texas. The PGA headquarters moves to Frisco with the intent to build a 600-acre mixed-use development, including a championship golf course or two, resort and hotel conference center space, in addition to the new corporate offices. Frisco officials approved the city's share of an incentive package, $160 million. The PGA's new home will house at least 100 workers and cost the PGA at least $30 million to build. The development will cost more than $520 million using public and private funds. 2022, it'll open. 2023, the Senior PGA Championship. 2027 and 2034, the PGA Championships itself. And another factor in the move, in May, Frisco topped the U.S. Census Bureau's list of fastest growing big cities in the U.S., adding an average of 37 new residents every day for a population jump of a little over 8%. Great development opportunities. Good luck there. PGA in Palm Beach Gardens, not existing for long. But the incentive trail is how businesses move from one place to another. Well, we'd like to thank Dan Martin for helping to put this together with Tanner Simpkins. We'd like to thank you all for watching and listening and joining us next time when we go Beyond the Scoreboard.